Today I'm going to be ranting about unhinged consumerism, and I think a really good example of this is Afterpay and buy now, pay later. It's gotten to the point, and it's been this case for some time now, it's so ridiculous that you can even Afterpay like a pen or a stapler on Officeworks, which if you're not from Australia and you're not familiar with that chain, it's sort of like stationery and computers and all this sort of stuff. So something that's as little as $2 or $5 or something like that, you can actually Afterpay and pay it off after a few months. But if you start doing this with everything in your life, you don't reap any immediate financial consequences for the material possessions that you want or the things that you might need. So you don't realize that you can't afford it until you're in way too deep, and then you're really in the shit. It's obvious how expensive things are when you're paying with cash because you can't afford it. But this is a whole different thing. It's the root of all evil. Cool. Thank you. Sorry about the interruption, just had to extend my stay at this hotel. But yeah, it's completely ridiculous that everything is financed these days. And when you start financing things, you get things that you can't afford and that you ordinarily wouldn't get. It's just been a race to the bottom. You know, you finance your house, obviously, because that's not something that you can afford all at once. But then you start to finance things like your phone and your shoes and your action camera that you buy. So you know, in Australia, the average car repayment is $200 per week. And many families are living in the outer suburbs of cities which require a car. It's car dependent. Oftentimes, there'll be a family of, two parents, and they'll each have their own car. And then that's $200 per week for each person. Can you imagine the sort of stress that puts on you financially to maintain that? But if you can't afford something twice, I think you can't afford it once. Just don't have the thing, because things are only enjoyable. Like if you go to like a really expensive spa day or something like that, yeah, it's going to be relaxing. But if you can't afford it, then then obviously it's not going to be relaxing. Imagine spending like $3,000 that you don't have to get a massage. Hey bro, no thank you. It's going to make you so much more stressed than when you were walking in. So having all of these things that you don't need or you can't afford, it's no good unless you can afford it. Yeah, no one owns anything anymore. Absolutely everything is financed. And it's silly to assume that because you have some money right now, that's going to be the case forever, I think it's good to have a life that's flexible. And if you want to stop working so hard to maintain your current lifestyle, then it shouldn't be that difficult. It's something that you should just be able to do. But when everything's financed, you have to maintain all that. And I feel like you get yourself into this hedonistic loop of, you dislike your job, so you need something shiny to make you happy, but then you need to keep working to pay that thing off, and you just get sucked right in. I do understand financing things to some extent, but racing to the bottom where we are now, where you can finance a stapler, is just completely ridiculous. It's a line in Fight Club, that everything you own, or the things that you own, end up owning you. And that's so true. But it's not just because of attachment to those material possessions. These days, it's also they literally own you because you have to pay the bastards off. Like, how many of you actually own things like a phone outright or a car outright? And it's so silly because the ad will say, iPhone, $0 up front. And it really makes people think, for some reason, that it's free. Nothing's free. You're not getting a free iPhone. Don't be ridiculous. Even if the ad says you're going to get a free iPhone, just use some common sense. Why would you get a free iPhone? Who would give you that? Right now, I'm overseas. It's been a little bit expensive, I suppose, getting here and coming here. But most people, or a lot of people anyway, will finance things like this. They'll finance their time off. They'll finance their wedding and their honeymoon, something that's supposed to be, a beautiful experience of coming together with your friends and your family around, and then having a romantic time away, just you two, to commemorate this new connection. It becomes financed, and people spend tens of thousands of dollars on this shit in order to try and make it feel special. But then it just becomes an absolute nightmare to pay the thing off. These things aren't enjoyable if you can't afford them. They're just stressful. The same thing goes for engagement rings. We've been brainwashed into thinking that we're stingy unless we spend 3 months' salary on an artificially inflated diamond that is almost definitely not ethically obtained. And again, like I said before, artificially inflated with the supply to make it seem like it's more valuable than it is. And 3 months' salary, most of us don't have to spend on this tiny little thing, So then that becomes financed as well. So we're brainwashed into thinking, unless we finance this ring thing, that we're stingy, and then we have to keep paying that off. It's a ring, it's a shoes, it's a house, it's a car, and then it's everything. And especially with a house, so many people during COVID, when interest rates were at 0%, they financially leveraged the out of themselves to get the biggest and the baddest house that they could get, and now they're stuck paying that off, and the interest rates are higher, and they're super financially stressed because they've left themselves no wiggle room, and they're just completely drowning in repayments for these sorts of things, thinking that maybe in 30 years, hold on, maybe this is going to go up over a period of 30 years. So this is how you should do it right now. Going to an ATM, going to get cash out, and then I'll know exactly how much I have to spend. No, I won't, because I forgot to bring my phone, so I can't transfer any money. Oh, you shouldn't be taking financial advice off me. I can't even access my cash. But yeah, all these things, if you want to have things, that's fine. But I promise you that they're only enjoyable if you can actually afford them. Don't think that you're going to somehow get the money later, or that you'll keep making the money so that you can pay it off. It's just a trap. It really is. It all just comes down to living within your means. And I think that's something that a lot of people are not really comfortable with. They want to have the thing, but they don't realize that they either don't earn enough money, or they don't work enough hours, or whatever. But just know what you can have and just be comfortable with that. It's fine to not have the biggest and the best and the newest and the baddest. You can get a car from the 90s that works just fine. You can get a car for a few $1,000s. You don't need to finance yourself out of the wazoo to get something with all the features. You just don't. But I have a mate, and when he was 18, he got a credit card straight away to purchase all his DJing equipment. And he's like $10,000 in debt. I think he's still paying it off, and he's in his 30s now. But 10,000, that could have been achieved relatively easily by working, and maybe not he's the sort of dude that gets the absolute best equipment all the time. Maybe could have gotten something a little bit more simple. But the idea that for these very basic things in life, you need to put yourself into debt is completely unnecessary, especially for things like a bloody pen. So anyway, I'm curious as to what your thoughts and your values on this sort of buy now, pay later and financing and this sort of subscription model of all the possessions that we have these days is. Financing your phone and then moving on to the next one when that comes out, because that's a part of the plan, and you just keep paying it off for $80 a month instead of just owning it outright. Let me know what your thoughts and your values on this sort of thing is. I'm quite interested. I think it's quite clear what my thoughts are, but I'd like to hear yours. Alright, cheers. See you on the next one.